Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Paul Vagley. I'm here with my colleague, Christina Singh, and we wanted to welcome you to our webinar on insights for ArcGIS, understanding spatial and tabular data. The purpose of this session today is to look at our newest application called Insights for ArcGIS. And we're going to be walking through how you can leverage data within the solution, analytics that are available to you, leveraging maps, charts, graphics, and how you can take that information and leverage it across the organization, sharing workspaces and pages as well. Just to get started, we just have one housekeeping detail for you. If you have questions, please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. We will hold them off till the end, but to do so, just select the, as you can see here, the Ask All Panelists. If you don't see that box down there, just at the top, there's that at the top right, the Q&A blue box. Just click on that and that'll open up your questions, and we'll save those till the end. So again, just the quick agenda for today's session. We're going to be talking about insights and how you can use that for enhancing your analytical decision making and gaining knowledge about your data. We're going to be looking at three sections. The first, we're going to talk about data integration and preparation, and where can you pull your data from, how you can integrate this into your solution. As well, then we're going to be moving into analytics, how you can leverage your data to drive insights through graphics, charts, maps. And then we'll follow up and finish off with workflow visualizations, how you can take all that awesome work you've put together and share that across the organization. So as we get through, I just wanted to kind of give you this little idea of what, Insights is really all about. I'm sure a lot of you out there have already gone through some of the web sessions that we've had or looked on the website. But for those who haven't had an exposure to Insights, Insights is this tool that works with your ArcGIS Enterprise solution and allows you to, that new generation of analytics and mapping technology. You're able to take your data, bring it into a map, whether it's in a tabular format or if it's in a spatial context, create links, joins, simply picking fields from your data source and dragging it onto the map, whether you want to visualize this as a map, a chart, a graph, but then do some advanced analytics like regression modeling, visualize it in bar, pie charts, and as you can see on our little slide here, you can look at it into a scatter plot and do some relationships analysis. You have access to the demographic information, which we'll talk about a little bit down within the presentation. But pulling in data from different sources with regards to demographics, consumer spending, and other variables that are available in the ArcGIS Online world. Guided workflows, very simple, easy, 1, 2, 3 steps in driving analytics, whether you want to do drive times, buffering, histograms, or any types of analytical function available in Insights is a very simple, easy-to-use workflow. So really, at the end of the day, what we're showing here is that we're taking these analytic skills and processes that GIS users can leverage in a seamless process, but also allowing non-GIS users access to some very sophisticated analytical capabilities as well. So let's get started. What I want to talk about the first step is data integration and preparation. And Christina is going to get into a nice demonstration on how you can leverage your data and integrate it into the solution. But when we look at data integration, currently what we have is this kind of three-pronged model of bringing in data into Insights. You have that access to your server, ArcGIS server, and the portal, and being able to connect to that data and bringing it through your content or leveraging shared content that's in your organization. So if Christina has shared content with me, such as neighborhood polygons, and I'd like to leverage that in my Insights workflow, I can pull that data in, much like you can with your ArcGIS Online or server. Click, drag, drop analytics also includes for Excel. So I can take my Excel files from my desktop, drag them right into my map, and drop them, and I'll have access to my Excel files and pick and choose which tables I'd like to bring into my analysis. And then finally, database connectivity. Insights allows you currently to connect to Microsoft SQL, SAP HANA, and Teradata. Currently in the process for the next release in summer timeframe, we're looking at Oracle support. And I know that's a question that will be coming through some people as we go through the presentation. One thing I also wanted to mention is that we are looking at insights from the server context. Right now, Insights is available through the portal server. It will be coming to ArcGIS Online in 2017, around the summertime. But in 2017, Insights will be available for ArcGIS Online users. Next one. So, I jumped ahead a little bit there. So there we go. So when we talk about integration, one of the things I mentioned, Insights is a tool that allows you to leverage both your spatial and your tabular data. Spatial for the GIS user, we all know it's our point data, it's our lines, it's our custom polygons, whether they be neighborhoods or drive times, and our standard geographies, whether we're using dissemination areas, census tracts, census subdivisions, or census metropolitan areas. We can leverage that spatial content right into our maps. But Insights allows us to do this click, drag, drop of our tabular data. So if we have address information, lat and longitude point data, we can drag that in, geocode it, and visualize it onto the map. But we can also take data referencing those neighborhoods or those other polygons and our Excel file, put that into our Insights, and simply do a connection link or reference. What's great about Insights is that historically, if you want to do a connection between your Excel file or CSV file and link it to your spatial context, you have to ensure that both fields were of the same type, whether your DAs were matching because they were text files or if they are integer. In this case, my tabular data could be a text file DA layer. My spatial could be an integer. The solution's going to allow you and recognize that and do that relationship for you. So no longer you have to go, is this one integer or text? Also, I can pick which fields I want to keep or dismiss. So in my Excel spreadsheet, if I have my neighborhood connecting layers or neighborhood fields that I want to connect to my spatial context, but in my Excel spreadsheet, I also have other information, an aggregation of rural, aggregation of urban, or other rows that don't connect to the spatial data that I have, I can still keep that data in my Insights as well and visualize that in other ways, whether I want to look at it in the tabular format. And finally, a big component about Insights is this work, page, and cards. You know, Insights works around this work, page, cards philosophy. The overall is the work environment. You know, we're working in this workspace. At the top in the red box, you can see pages. So we can have pages that are representative of different work or projects that we're working on. And then within there, we create cards. And cards allow us to have different types of analytics, whether we want a map, a chart, a table, trees, a tree diagram, bubble diagrams, or any other scatter plot types of analytics. And what's here is these cards can be interconnected with each other. So I wanted just to give you an idea of what's currently available within Insights from the integration standpoint. And I'm just going to have Christina now is going to take you through a demonstration on how you can take your data and bring that into Insights.
Thanks, Paul. So I'm going to demonstrate how to add data from different data sources and getting them ready for our analysis. I'll go through some fundamental pieces in Insights that Paul just talked about. The way you access Insights is through your portal. And Insights will launch from the X button once you have access to it. And in Insights, we work with workbooks. I'm going to just create a new one for our analysis. Once you have created a workbook, you are prompted to add data. Insights works with different forms of data. Hosted or registered feature layers you've created sitting in My Content or have been shared to you from my organization. You can also add Excel file sheets or data that has been configured to a connected database. I'm going to add 2 sets of data that has been shared by Paul which is the Winnipeg data. And in this Winnipeg data, this is a feature service. And for those of you who have worked with feature service, you can have multiple map layers in one feature service. So here I have four different layers. I'm only going to work with 3 of them. I don't need the incidence one, so I can just check it off from there. I'm also going to add 2 Excel file sheets from my local computer. And again, if you have multiple sheets in your Excel file, you can also unclick them from here as well. It's very convenient to limit which kind of data or what data you want to work with within your existing data sets. I'm going to take away these for now. Let's now take a look at the data itself. What I have here is 3 spatial layers. One is hospital, and one is neighborhoods, and the other one is dissemination areas. They're overlapping. And the data sets I have is patients, and for personal reasons, we have stripped out all the data. So this only has the the postal code and the coordinate within the data. Another data set we have is the community health data. This data set contains health information such as average height, average weight, and other things like how many people have diabetes in that community and things like that, or for each dissemination area. So in Insights, what's very convenient is you can just rename the field or data set names that don't seem to make sense. Others who have access to your workbook or presentation may not understand a field name. So by doing this, you renaming a field or data set, they will be able to understand it better when they have access to it. And changing the name of a field or data set does not change the name in the underlying data, only how that field is presented in Insights. So you're really just changing the alias. I'm just trying to clean the data up a little bit. And with Excel file sheets, which you just saw on patients, we have the coordinates of the patients, but this is still just an Excel table if we don't if we don't geocode it. What we have here is enable locations. And it automatically detects the X and Ys. And once we have run the geocoding process, you see we have added a new coordinates field to the data, which means now we can finally map it. Another really cool functionality with the enable location is you can actually have multiple locations enabled on one data set. So this data set you're looking at patients, there is coordinate systems, and there's also the postal code. What we can do is we can have use the enable location to add geography locations by matching the postcode to the postcode standard geography. And it will use an ArcGIS Online geocoder for this one. We just need to find Canada, and then it will detect all the address. For this case, we only have postal code. And now we have another address bar in our data. And if we add that to here, just to show the difference, but zoom into a smaller area, you can see these points do not exactly overlap because one represents the exact coordinates of the patients and the other one represents the postal code area. You may have noticed each field name has an icon beside it. It represents the field role. So for the patients, you can see we have a location, like a drop pin icon, and that represents location. And you also have a number. This represents number. And when it's a number, you can actually see it as a string or rate or ratio. And this is very important. As Paul mentioned earlier, we can actually create relationships between a string field and a number field, which was not able to do in many of softwares before, and now we can just easily do it by changing this to a different field type. And also, this is a string type of field, and if you have temporal data, there will be another icon. It looks like a little clock, but we don't have a temporal data in here, so you won't see it. And in Insights, you work, this is our workbook, and you work with different pages. You can have multiple pages as you wish. You can also drag and drop data to a new page to have a page created for you. And the data that you drag and drop will just automatically be added to that page. You can also just add data like you did before from your content, your organization, and your Excel file sheets. And there are some other functional buttons as well. Relationship view, which allows you to associate rows from 2 or more data sets. And sync maps, which we'll talk about more later on, it allows you to display the same spatial extent when you zoom and pan around when you have multiple maps on the page. It's helpful when you have maps on your page updated to reflect the location and the zoom level for your area of interest. And then we have this page view, which is what we're looking right now, and analysis view, which will record all of your work process and you can review it later. And we'll get into more details in that part. And to prepare the data, I'm going to create a relationship between 2 data sets. If you remember, our community health data does not have a coordinates or anything, but what it does, it has the code, which represents the dissemination area code. And I also have the dissemination areas in our data sets. I'm just drag and drop, and like we've been telling you, Insights is very smart. It uses drag and drop and actually detects what you want to do. For this one, I'm going to create a relationship between code and DAUID, which represents unique identifier for dissemination areas. If you remember, I talked about the icon. The code is a number, and the DAUID is actually a string field. But we can still create a relationship between the 2 without doing the traditional converting the string to a number type of thing when it comes to common keys. Once that is done, our community health data will be able to spatially displayed because now it has the location coordinates added to it. So now if we drag like a field, just like any one to it, and it will actually create the number for us, the map for us. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Paul.
Thanks, Christina. So, just to summarize this first section about being able to bring your data in and visualize it, as you can see that Insight allows for this easy use and accessibility to your data. Very simply, select the data you want from the source, drag those fields that you want into your map. You can even change the field itself, whether you want it as an integer or text-based. But you're able to change the data. It's very easy to take your tabular data, link it to spatial data, and being able to visualize that onto the map. Workbooks are clean and simple to use. You notice that there weren't any tabs or menus to go through. It's very 1, 2, 3, click, drag, drop application, and then pages organize your information. So if you have content on page 1 and you'd like to see it, carried over onto page 2, or you want different data sets, you can control the data sets that you're going to be leveraging for each page within that work project that you're working on. And then cards are a great way in which you can organize your analytics. And if you want to have some point data on one map, but you need it aggregated onto another map, you can see how, while these cards stand alone, they're all integrated together. So bringing in your data and leveraging your data in Insights is very simple. Click, drag, drop, 1, 2, 3. So moving on, we're getting into the fun stuff of analytics. And this is where we can start doing some really great analytics and processes that can drive, no pun intended, insights into your data. So when we look at the Insights itself, it's this ability to blend your data and select your information and have these cards for dynamic interaction. Christina is going to later on show some questions came in on sharing information. And these pages that you create at the end can be shared. And while, for those familiar with the operations dashboard that we have, users, after you've done your analysis, you create your operations dashboard, users can go in and engage with the dashboard. They can highlight fields and click information and get some analytics back, but they can't change the data. Well, that's the shared pages for insights. You can share your pages. People can have this dynamic interaction with those pages, and as you click on a chart, will reflect what you see on the map, but they can't change the content itself. So what's available to you within Insights? So here's some of the charts and analytics that you can perform. As we kind of go from left to right, we have the scatter plots. And scatter plots are a great way to look at correlations or regression analysis. And Christina's going to go through some of this where you can take two variables and quickly see if there's a correlation between two variables. And what the scatter plot's going to come back with you is an algorithm or a score, an R-squared score, to look at the relationship between the two variables. So the closer to 1, the more of a positive relationship is between, for example, we've done a scenario looking at people who smoke regularly to drink regularly. There's a strong correlation relationship to that. And you can apply things like linear scoring, exponential or polynomial scoring to your analysis to look at relationships. We talked a little bit about tree diagrams. So if you have a listing of neighborhoods or qualitative values, drag them in, and just by simply clicking on the tree will reflect what happens in the other graphics. Pie charts, bar charts, histograms are available as well. Very simple. It's all click, drag, drop. And with the histograms, you can determine the number of bins you want to see. In the below, we're looking at household incomes. And as we bring the bar across to show more bins, it becomes more granular. And as we select on those bins, become reflective onto the map. And of course, line charts, we have time-based graphics as well. So if your data has a time element to it, you can scroll across and look how data has changed over time. But it's not just about taking your graphics and charts and throwing them onto a map and driving analytics that way. There's tools that are available to you. So if you looked at Christina's demonstration you saw on the map, there's this little icon on the bottom, this little blue icon. And selecting that icon opens up a couple more charts. There's analytics, and the top things that you can see are creating buffers and drive times. You can do your spatial filters. So I want to know, let's say around a hospital of a 10-minute drive time, show me all the patients that fall within that drive time or aren't contained within that drive time. Who are the at-risk areas? You have the calculate density. So instead of looking at a one-off, maybe your records have a quantitative value and you want to look at the density. Maybe it's weather information. You can do your aggregations, your geo-enrichment, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, finding nearest, so proximity analysis. But let's say you have specific questions that you want answered. Insight's going to direct you to the best tools that can help solve those answers. So how is it distributed? Well, the best tools for looking at distribution are spatial aggregation, histograms, classifications, and calculate densities. What if it's by what's nearest? Well, you can do your create buffer, your drive times, your spatial filters, your find nearest. You can also create attribute features. You can go in and create your own custom values. If we're looking at relationships, you have that scatter plot, the demographic enrichment, and those calculate ratios. So what's the ratio of homeowners to renters, or people who have to spend on health care at a certain age range? You can create those ratios with right in Insights and how it changed. So you can do population trend changes. How has the population changed from 2026 from 2016, or time series. So we have access to all these tools that help within your analysis. Just clicking through. There we go. So one of the things I want to talk about before Christina goes is the geo-enrichment and what you have available to you. People within ArcGIS Align, in this scenario, we're using a hybrid model. We have Insights and our 10.5 server installed on a Azure instance here in Canada, but we're accessing that demographics, the drive time information through our ArcGIS Online account. So we're showing an example of a hybrid model in this instance. All the data we've published up to ArcGIS Online is safely secured here in Canada on a premises server that we don't have to worry about going elsewhere. So when we talk about demographics and gaining content, this is where we're pulling information from ArcGIS Online. Now, to give you an idea, I know most of the people, or majority of the people on the call, are interested in the Canadian demographics, but just so you're aware, Esri offers demographics for some 133 different countries, and as you can see, if we talk about the US, it comes from Esri Inc. In Canada, we use the Environics analytics data, which we'll get a little bit more in a second. If we go to global, Michael Research Bauer out of Germany. But some of these countries have premium data sets available. So if you're in Australia, France, Germany, India, South Korea with OpenMate, and Spain, there's enhanced demographics that you have access to. But specific to Canada, if you're looking for demographic information, we offer the Environics analytics data. We have the census here, so based on the 2011 census. Right now, as many know, the 2016 census is slowly rolling out, and they've released the Household and Population Pact. But right now, the foundation is based off the 2011 census. You have access to the estimate projections data, so that includes 2016, 3, 5, 10-year forecasting, and 5-year previous. Daytime population, so 7 variables for daytime population, total population, who's at home, who's at work, at home under 15, 15 to 64, 65 and older. Household spend, what are Canadians spending their money on, and that's based off of 2016. As well, the PRISM 5. What's PRISM 5? It's segmentation. So it takes your demographics to the next level, and it allows you to look at the unique characteristics of individuals. Do you like to travel down south to the Caribbean? Do you like to go overseas? Do you like watching hockey, soccer, ballet? Do you like eating out or in? What drives people to make certain decisions, and what's their unique characteristics and behaviors? This is a great tool if you're looking at engaging with constituents or individuals in the marketplace and how to connect with them specifically on their level. So these are things that are available to you within your hybrid model accessing ArcGIS Online information. I'm going to hand it over to Christina, who's going to show you some exciting stuff in trading some analytics within Insights. Christina?
Thanks, Paul. Yes, so this demo is about data exploration and how you can find meaningful information within your data and perform analysis. I'm dividing this demo into 2 sections. First, I'm going to go through some tools to explore the data. Then we'll try to solve a problem using Insights. As we mentioned multiple times, Insights works with card. And once you have clicked a field in your data, the available type of cards that you can create from this set of data will show up on here. Or you can just drag and drop and create whatever you want. I'm going to create a patient's map first. And the patient's points, it tells me the coordinate or location of the patients, but it does not tell me much information. I would like to see how they're distributed in each neighborhood. And in order to do that, I can perform a spatial aggregation using the neighborhood data. And what Paul mentioned earlier is this action button. So Insights is about analysis and finding answers. It's not a dashboard or a report. You should have a question that drives your analysis. If you know what you're looking for, you can go straight to the spatial tools from the action button and perform your analysis. But if you don't, the Find Answers tab is a great resource if you're trying to answer a question but do not know which tools to use or where to start. And similar tools are grouped together based on which type of questions they can answer, making it easy to find the right tool for your analysis. So I know I would like to use a spatial aggregation. I could do it from here, but what we've been telling you is the drag and drop functionality in Insights. I'm just dragging that neighborhood data set on top of my patients layer. And you see you have 3 options. I can add it as a new layer, or I can do a spatial aggregation, or filter it by the selected feature. So Insights knows if I have a point layer and a polygon layer, I might want to do a spatial aggregation. And after it aggregates, it gives us this symbology, and we can change it to a traditional classified map. And that gives us a better understanding of which areas or which neighborhoods has more connotations. And if your map or charts are too clustered with information, you can target your analysis with filtering. And there are several ways to filter data in Insights, including both attribute and spatial filters. The spatial filter can be found on top of this card. You have a card filter, or it's actually right beside each field in your data. What I would like to see is the community health data that we have a relationship created. I would like to see the average BMI, but I'm only concerned with average BMI that is above 25, because we know obesity has been a growing concern in our community. It is still a growing concern. What we can do is we can just drag this toolbar or the slider and then drag it to 25. And then it will eliminate all the areas that does not have the qualified criteria. What I can also do is a spatial filter, going back to the patient's data right here, and then the neighborhood data on the side of it. So I have patients and neighborhood, but I will only like to see, for example, patients in a specific neighborhood or multiple neighborhoods. What I can do is I can select multiple neighborhoods on the neighborhood layer and then just drag that subset of polygons and drop it on top of the patient's layer. And then instead of spatial aggregation, I'm going to pick filter by selected feature. And that comes with our spatial filter. You are left with patients that only sits within those polygons. So I'm just cleaning this page a little bit. It's getting a little messy. So what I just showed you are the spatial filter and attribute filter. And the next thing I would like to show you is you can actually compare data right beside each other in Insights, because my cards with several layers can be difficult. For example, our community health data, it could be really hard to see a bigger picture with this data set. So let's do a side-by-side comparison, which will allow you to fully understand your data, interact with two or more visualizations. So what I have is average BMI. I'm going to have another layer, which is health excellent. So health excellent means how many people in this community have reported to have excellent health. I'm going to change the symbol type again. So in legend, you can hide or show your legend, and then you can always change your symbol types in here too. And you can also have transparencies if you like. Oh, I have a filter around right now. I'm going to remove it simply like that. And then you already see all my maps are interactive. As one updates, as I change the filter on the data sets, it actually updates all my map in Insights. So what we have here is average BMI compared to health excellent. So we can see a neighborhood with a high average BMI, which we can see from the pop-up. It's 27 reported in this neighborhood. And then the health excellent, for people who have reported to have excellent health in this neighborhood, is actually 3. So on this pop-up, we can see the range of the data sets. So the lowest number for our data sets is 0, and the max number is 674, and the min is 97. So this neighborhood definitely has people reported to be health excellent under the average, and they have absolutely higher average in their BMI. So we can see a correlation between the average BMI and excellent health. And if you don't want your maps to be all synced as you zoom and pan around, you can always turn this off. But I like to have it turned on because I like to focus on my study area or areas of interest. I'm going to remove these two for now and get rid of these ones. The next thing I would like to talk about is charts. So in Insights, you can also visualize in data in a variety of interactive formats, allows you to quickly modify the data you see and the way it's presented. What we just did is finding trends through spatial analysis and visualizing results on maps. And another way to learn and visualize your data is through charts and graphs. So field roles, which is what we just talked about earlier, the location type, and we have number and string. So this field role determines the default chart options for this field. What I'm going to do is, for the hospital, I would like to see them in hospital types. This is a string field. If I drag it, create a chart, it automatically gave me a bar chart. But with Insights, with these tools on the top, we're going to go to visualization types, which will give you the different options that you have for this set of data. So since it's a string, we have these number of options that are available for us to visualize them. I like the bubble chart a lot, so I'm going to change it to a bubble chart. So the bubble means this is a hospital type. For a general type of hospital, how many hospitals fall within that category. And here you can see general type of hospitals. We have 3 in Winnipeg. And there's 1 university hospital, 2 cancer research, and 1 children's hospital. Another concept that we've been talking about is how you can change number to a string. So this EMP number, this isn't a mocked up number I just did for this demo. It doesn't really mean anything. I'm just going to bring it up here. And you can always change the number of bins that you would like to visualize them as well. If you have more data, it will show up better. But we just visualized it as it is a number, and I'm changing it to a string right now. So you can see, I'm just going to go through the visualization type. When it's a number, your options are not as much. You have the summary table, you have histogram, and all the other ones are grayed out. When you have this one as a string, you have more options to visualize your data. So what Insights allows you to do is to convert your field from a string to a number or back and forth, and to visualize them differently. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a donut chart. You can see these all creative options that you have to visualize your data, and they show data very differently as well. And the best part is they're also interactive. So as I click on one, it actually highlights what it correlates to in the other charts as well. So I have 3 hospitals, and then they fall within these two charts at the bottom actually represents the same data, but you can see it's very different. And they actually, so for that 3 hospitals, they fall into these categories. So that's your charting options in Insights. And before I jump to the next section, I would like to share this visualization catalog page with you. As I mentioned earlier, field roles determine chart options. The catalog will allow you to figure out what data is required for different types of visualizations and what type of questions it will help you and your audience to understand. So bar chart will tell you it requires a string, and you can also have a numeric field or a ratio. So that's I found that was really helpful when I try to visualize my data and see what's meaningful for me. Now that you have an understanding of Insights and all the basics, we're going to go through a real question, which is the analytic part. So I'm going to take the joint community health data with the dissemination areas to my page 2, as well as my hospitals and patients. I'll also get the neighborhoods data as well. So my question is to find areas that might potentially need more medical resources. And the first thing I would like to find out is areas with a lot of patients but live more than 5 kilometers away from a hospital. And these areas will be considered to be our at-risk areas. So here I have the hospitals. I'm going to create a 5-kilometer buffer. You do have different options, but for this purpose of the demo, I'm just going to go ahead, create a 5 kilometers. You can also preview your buffer to see if it's an ideal size. So there it is, my buffers. What I now like to figure out is where are my patients located and which ones of the patients are not sitting within the hospital buffer. What I can do is just drag and drop that hospital buffer from the legend, from my first card to my card 2. And this time I'm going to filter by selected feature, which means I only want to see patients outside of the buffer area. So for my type of filter, I'm going to select doesn't intersect. And there are my patients. But that only tells me where they are located, and I would like to find out the density of the patients. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the neighborhoods and do a spatial aggregation. And Insights is smart enough to figure out only neighborhoods with patients are left on the map. I'm going to change the symbology a little bit. So now we can have an idea or understanding of which areas actually has more concentrated patients in that area from our colored graph. The next thing I would like to figure out is to see how much each area is spending on medications and their population growth. I don't have this information in my existing data, so I'm going to use the Enrich Data tool to find out about the data. Going back to the Action button, Enrich Data. This is what Paul was talking about earlier. So ArcGIS Online offers a variety of data, and it's 137 countries. So we're going to go to Canada. We actually have a lot of data, and that is really extensive list of data. I would like to find prescribed medicines. And I will also like, as I mentioned, I would like to find total population by going to population totals. I'm just going to grab 2016, and there are some predictive values as well. I'm going to add all of them. Why? This will take a couple of seconds. It's really quick. And now if we look at this table again, we have all the enriched data in here. So we have how much they're spending on medicines and then their total population and for the next 3 years. So once this is done, I can start to visualize my data in the enriched data. So I'm going to take away this now, and so now it's showing how much it's spending on the neighborhood. Actually, I'm going to drag it to different so we can see differently. Sync the map. Okay, that looks better. So count of patients and how much they're spending on their health care, their medicines. And in Insights, it's really easy to drag and style your cards with on your pages. And the next thing I would like to figure out is the population growth. So what I have here is the data, view data table. So I have 2016 population and 2026 population, and I'm going to calculate it by adding a new field to it. And the calculation is really easy. What I could do is, so let me try to remember my formula. So 2016 population. Oh, let me try this again. Okay, yeah, there we go. So calculating in Insights is very easy. This is my formula trying to calculate population growth, divided by 2016 total population. And I would like to look at it in the percentage. So I have times 100 at the back. 1. And there it is. I have some population growth calculated for some of my neighborhoods. And from this data, you can actually see some of them are actually negative. So we're probably not too concerned about those areas. I'm going to look at the new field. I should have renamed it. Sorry, I was looking at it. Percentage change for population. Here we go. Create a map chart. I'm also going to compare the neighborhood and the chart, how much they're spending. I'm going to take this away. How much they're spending on medicines in terms of each neighborhood. There we go. So we have the names of the neighborhood on the bottom, and then on the right, it shows the amount of money that they're spending on those areas, on those medicines. And percent change, I'm going to put, no, you're moving. There we go. What I'd like to show is some of the areas do not have a positive growth, which we already show. So I'm going to filter out only places with more than 11 or 10% of growth show up on the map. So we can see that you have less data to work with right now. And what you can also do on the chart is to select which neighborhoods have more spendings by just like dragging and drop a polygon, a rectangle on top of it, and it will select areas like that. And this is interactive too. So we selected areas that spend on average more than average cost on medicines, and that's what we have here. And it actually has highlighted a few areas on our map. So what we might be thinking is these areas might be potential locations that might need more medical resources in the future, because we do have people spending a lot on their medicines, and they are living in the at-risk areas that are 5 kilometers away from a hospital, and they have high population growth in the next 10 years. And with that, I'm going to pass things back to Paul.
Thanks, Christina. So, just to re-highlight what Christina has just gone through is that Insights is a tool that allows you to really work with your data. As you had seen, you can take that information, no matter the format, create correlations by simply dragging and dropping that information and creating cards, whether you want to make a map of your territories or neighborhoods, another map of points, patients information, dragging that onto the neighborhoods and quickly doing an aggregation. Then looking at variables that you've had, whether you've gone through the geo-enrichment process and brought in some of that demographic information, or you have your own data and creating histograms, bar charts, pie charts, scatter plots, and being able to have all this data interconnect with each other, looking at the body mass index and filtering out, looking for scores that might show a higher level of obesity, and that filters out all the other cards for you. So you can look at the information and data specific to your analysis that you're trying to solve the problem. This is a great tool for looking at how you can drive decisions, whether you're looking at ongoing projects or ad hoc projects. The last section we're going to go through, and it's not that long, just a few minutes, and a lot of questions have come in about this, is that after I've done all my work, all my analytics, how do I get this out to everybody? How do I share this information? And there's two ways in which you can share this data. You can share it whether it's in a workflow, or you can share it as pages. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this back off to Christina, and she's just going to show you, after she's done all this great work, how she can share this with everyone else in the organization so they can look at it in a dynamic fashion, or they can just have people create their own analysis off those workflows that have been created.
Thanks, Paul. So here we're looking at the page that we've just worked on, and we have all these analysis and the steps, the process, and the charts that we created. And now we want others or others in our organization to see it or to reproduce the same analysis with their own data, either with another different city or a different place that they wish. So what you can do is from the drop-down page options, you have this share as a model, which you can give it a title, description, and share it with everyone or just within your portal or within a group. And once that's shared, I'm going to show you an existing one. So it's the same way when other people try to access it, it's the same way to add data to your page. So instead of data, you have the model. I don't have any right now, but Paul has shared one with a model with the organization. When you pick patients by neighborhood, so once I've added it, everything is empty because it's a model. So what you need to do is go to the analysis view, the last button on the top of the page, and then update the data with your own data. So this is saying it was a hospital, and then you can select a layer from your page to work with it. And all the tools and analysis steps are listed right here. You can also have enrichment as well. Some things are static, but a lot of things are configurable. So I think the style is static. Oh, the buffer is static. Okay, oh, sorry, buffer is dynamic. You can change the buffer. Yeah, so these kind of tools, so if it's an analysis tool, you can change the buffer. For example, you can change the distance that you would like to buffer and things like that. And that's the last bit of my demo today, so I'm going to pass things back to Paul. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Christina. As you can see, sharing is really short. It's very easy to do. Once you've created all that analysis and that work, you can just share that information with everyone across the organization. So just to summarize, and we're going to get into the questions, as you can see, Insights is this new foray into the world of being able to leverage spatial analytics with tabular information, moving from BI to BA, business analytics, and allowing users to start to get more granular with that data that they have, picking out exact data sets they want to use, being able to blend that information together, whether it has tabular correlations, or you need to do it based off of location. So my customers or my patients don't have a relationship or a field that recognizes them into a particular neighborhood. By using Insights, I can quickly aggregate that information and draw some great information from that. Geo-enrich that data with demographics and other sourced information. Insights is very much a click, drag, drop solution. As you've seen, there's no windows, there's no tabs of drop-downs of fields. It's not a complex solution. I pick the data I want from my content, I drag it into my workspace, I pick how I want to visualize that information, whether it's a map, a chart, a graphic, a table, and I can look at that data and analyze it very quickly. Insights brings the world of GIS to the non-GIS user, but it brings the world of advanced analytics to the GIS world as well. At this time, we're going to take some questions, and a lot have come in. We've had questions about, what's the scalability of Insights? And Christine?
Yes.
A couple resources. Hopefully some of these questions can be answered for you as this presentation will be shared. If you want more information on insights, we have the hyperlinks. So there's insights for ArcGIS. You can explore, analyze, iterate, look at how insights can be leveraged for different verticals of business that you're involved in. Insights documentation. So we have the release notes, system requirements, installing configurations, as well as getting started. It's a nice documentation that has the top 5 tips for getting started with insights. As well, next week, March 17th, there's a session, Strategies for an Insights-Driven Business. That's with our friends at Esri Inc. and a representative from Forrester who will be presenting on insights for driven business units. So, if you have the time, definitely check that out. I will be. Upcoming web events. So we're going to have on April 20th, ArcGIS for developers, choosing the right approach. And then, of course, we're into spring user conference season. So get out. You'll see Mark Ho, for those who know him, Mike Rogoski, Chris North, and Christina will be live and in person. So if for spring user conferences, these are in your neck of the woods, please check them out. And then for other cities, we fall into the fall session. On that note, wanted to thank you all for joining today. I hope that this session was useful and it gave you more insights into insights. And this recording will be available after the session. If you have any additional questions, and a lot have come in during the session, so I do apologize if we missed them. So please shoot us off an email, and I'd love to chat more with you on these. So I'll leave that up for a few more seconds. But if you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to Christina or myself. And I guess on that note, we want to thank everyone for joining today.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And I've seen a few comments saying how my demos has been helpful. And thank you for that. And please fill up our surveys because I always read them.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.